The more value you can provide to your clients, your audience, whoever it might be, tenfold over, you're going to get the returns. The more that you do grind and more value that you are applying to the world, the better results your clients get, that they like you, the better chances that they're going to refer you to other people. And referrals is like the greatest tool in the world. So just digging deeper down into it with those people that you can help the most. If you're looking for the specific amount of time, I couldn't tell you because it just feels like it's always a work in progress.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow, because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, let's get right into this one. Rob, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to get to know you, to get to meet you yet, man, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
John, dude, first of all, thanks again. I know it's been a while and we were planning to get this kind of episode recorded, and I'm glad we're finally doing it. So people who don't know me, I like to now say that I'm a recovering workaholic, and I like to help other entrepreneurs and aspiring side hustlers prevent that burnout and keep grinding and perform well and optimize life and business.
100%, man. And so for anyone that doesn't know, man, Rob hopped on the podcast technically back for the 100th episode. So if you haven't heard Rob yet, he's been on the 100th episode. It was you, Guillory, and my friend Brian, and my friend Darren are all on that collab episode. But I never got a chance to really talk to you one-on-one, man. So I'm excited to really jump into your journey, man. Take us back in a time machine. What was little Rob like?
Oh, how far back do you want to go, dude?
As far back as I could take us.
Dude, I mean, all the way back, I used to be the short, chunky little dweeby kid, and no friends. Parents are divorced. I'm bouncing around a bunch of different schools, and it's pretty difficult to make friends when you're antisocial and you're out of shape and you can't really connect with anybody. So I got introduced to athletics through one of my good friends' dads. Actually, he was the football coach of Pop Warner. You played Pop Warner, right?
I actually didn't. I got into sports late because my grandparents couldn't afford sports. So I think my first year playing football was my 8th grade year. And it was because my friend's mom ended up actually helping out. So it was until 8th grade year that I was able to play. And then I picked up football and I instantly fell in love.
Oh, yeah, it's easy. And
Mm.
I'm guessing some of the same reasons why I fell in love with it, you fell in love with it. And at first I was, like I said, dude, I was a short, dweeby little kid, no friends. I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't even make it through the warm up in the beginning of practice. And these other kids, all the cool kids on the team, they're like running around. They know all the plays. They know like professional athletes. Everyone's pretending to be certain players. And the only thing I'm worried about is like, how am I going to make it through 15 jumping jacks in like the one warm up lap? So that's all I could focus on. And that's really what I kind of focused on. I made sure that I would continue to practice the push-ups, the sit-ups, all those things on my own at home. And eventually that led up to building a little bit of physical resilience. And that transferred over to the point where I started getting in a little bit better shape. Getting in a little bit better shape led me to starting to pay attention to eating some better foods and so on and so on. And then eventually I started to play a little bit. And playing a little bit led to, okay, this kid kind of knows what he's doing. Let's pay attention to him. And that led to some more eyeballs on me, some other friends kind of introducing themselves to me. And eventually I started to develop a position where I became like a leader on the team. So now fitness really was like the gateway drug to communication and developing friendships and relationships. And the more that I continued to play, the better I got. And the better I got, the more friends I had. So the more friends I had, the more parties I would get invited to. And I wasn't allowed to go to anybody's birthday party if I didn't get my homework done. So there I had to make sure that all my grades were on check and had to make sure that everything was lined up so I could hang out with my friends, go to their sleepovers, playing video games, things like that. So that eventually got me into the realm of fitness.
Quick timeout. Your mic, when you speak, it sounds great, but it's rubbing up against your jacket. Yeah.
All right.
And for Ezekiel, whenever you see this, just edit this portion out. All right, and then we're just gonna pick back up like as if nothing happened, starting now. So one of the main reasons why I love football growing up, at least when I started, was because for me, it was something where I could compete. It was fun. It was something new that I never experienced before. I loved the organized team aspect, like the family side of it. I feel like I was really in a brotherhood. It was almost kind of cult like, honestly, like the football team, especially in middle school. Like everyone, like if you were on another football team, you were the opposition. Like you were like, it's like almost like little mini gang members, almost essentially. If you was the other sider, like there was no friendship that could be formed there, especially during football season. Like after football season, we're all cool, but during football season, nah, it's like nah, we're not cool, bro. Don't talk to me. And then for me, one of the biggest reasons I actually don't talk about this often, just because most of the time the conversation topic never really comes up. But the main reason why I really love football as I matured was because it was the first time I was able to truly experience life. And I was always, for anyone that's into attachment styles, my attachment style was avoidant dismissive, meaning I would cut everyone off. Like I was so quick to cut people off. I had this one friend at the time back in high school. She called me annoying, and she raised her tone a bit at me when she said it. I was like, "You're done." I cut her off for like a month. Didn't talk to her at all, and we had multiple classes together. I was like, "Yeah, I don't know who you think you were talking to, but like, you were done." And I just built up these walls trying to protect myself and never let anyone in. Like I would never get too deep into friendships or relationships, unless aside from like the guys, like those are my guys. But aside from that, everyone was just kept at arm distance away, just in case I needed to cut them off really quickly. I could do so and continue going about my business, living my life for as if nothing ever happened. And for football, it allowed me to experience emotions for the first time without being, so scared of being hurt, and it allowed me to be sad and angry and happy and annoyed and all the, emotions in between. Before it was just I was either super happy, like they called me Smiley back in eighth grade year on the football team because I was just always a super positive kid, and if I wasn't happy, I was like extremely annoyed, like anger, like massive anger. That was the only two emotions that I knew. But football allowed me truly to experience everything, and it helped me to grow emotionally. It helped me to mature emotionally. I was always smart. I was always pretty wise for my age, but in terms of emotional, like IQ, like I was so underdeveloped and immature. It was crazy. But that's for me, like one of the main reasons I really, really love football because it impacted me on such a deep level. And then on top of that, all the discipline, the hard work, the mindset, the training, the shape, like being in great shape, like all that stuff was just cherries on top.
Yeah, dude. I love that you talk about how it was like the gateway into emotions. It really allowed you to experience those emotions without the fear of vulnerability, right? So you get
Yeah.
to really kind of grow and evolve that with the protection at the side there. And yeah, man, I love the relationship aspect of it too, because like I said, I didn't really have too many friends growing up. It was difficult for me to make friends. And getting into the team setting really allowed me to create my own family because
Yeah.
my dad was still in Philly and I was up in New York, and it was difficult having like a split family and not really understanding things. So I really leaned into the team.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Rob. So after high school, right? You got pretty good grades. You were playing sports. I know you ended up being pretty good at football. And where did you go from there? Like, where did the journey take you after you graduated high school?
Yeah, after high school, I went to college. I played football, Division III at SUNY Cortland, upstate New York, and that took away the love of the sport. It became too much of like a job, balancing that work study and school work and everything. So I ended up retiring after my freshman year. Scored a touchdown against Brockport, so that's pretty cool. But then I kind of shifted my studies into kinesiology, which is the study of human movement, and that was kind of opened the fitness world to another level. Then I joined rugby quickly after that, and that became like a new brotherhood. Much like how you were saying during football, it's like your team, it's kind of like its own little gang or a cult. Rugby was very similar, except immediately after the game, you're already having food and drinks with the opponents. So they say it's a hooligans game played by gentlemen. So I truly believe that, and that really opened the eyes of evolution of relationships and communicating and bringing the team to a next level. And that made it an easy transition for me in school because
Mm.
that's how I got into coaching, because I didn't know where I was going to be, where I was going to find my family after college sports. So that's where I dove right into coaching. That allowed me to start to create my next level of family. So the next group of people that I can consider close knit with me.
Yeah. So what was that phase of life like getting into the coaching? I remember still for me, like my first entrepreneurial endeavor was trying to get into real estate wholesaling. But I talked to a couple of attorneys, long story short, like that ain't end up going the way I wanted to. But like you actually managed to turn coaching into something pretty big. So what was that like that season of your life like? What was going around you? Like how did you juggle that with managing like your personal life as well? Because at that age, what you were what like 20 or so when you started coaching, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what was life like at that time? Because most people aren't getting into entrepreneurship at that age.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, it was not pretty, because you got into the coaching world and you don't see a lot of dollar signs. It's a lot of rough hours. So that kind of built the framework of hard work, I think. Aside from sports, now in like the business world, you pretty much got to be in the gym, turning the lights on, setting all the racks up, making sure all the numbers on the weights are all squared up before the teams get there. So you're getting up like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to get everything squared up. And then you've got team after team. You got to deal with a lot of different personalities. You got to learn how to kind of be fluid with your approach to coaching. So you got to teach yourself to wear a lot of different hats. You got to interact with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And then it's super long hours too. So you got to make sure that you're mitigating your own emotions and putting on the different hats for the different teams, for the different players. And then at the end of the day, you have to go home, and then you have to take care of your personal life. So it was a lot of throwing you into the fire to really kind of lay the groundwork for business owning.
Yeah, and wearing a lot of hats, something I learned to do at Sign the Whale. For anyone that doesn't know, I worked at a restaurant, and man, the amount of people you have to talk to and the amount of different personalities you come across, it's like it can be a lot to deal with. And you mentioned too, like your personal life always seems to come last when you're dealing with starting a business. What was it like for you, like mentally? Like, what helped you push through at that point in time when you were starting out? Because you also said too, it took you a while to get started making money. For me, I still remember I got into real estate as an agent. What September? I didn't close my first rental till like December, and then from there I didn't close another rental till August, right? And then with the social media classes, my first class I thought was taught was February. I didn't make any money to that until like August that year, and then that was only $1,000. And then from there, didn't make more money until January of 2023. So like it was a long time for me to get started, and I know I was grinding away. So like, what was that season like for you? How did you actually start getting paid and making some type of income from it that actually made it start to make a difference in your life?
Yeah, I think I don't know the original saying or where it came from, but I know Alex Hormozy just kind of touched on it recently. I heard somebody else talking about his rendition of it. But for me, it was just you got to spend an hour educating yourself on some kind of topic in your field. So for me, getting right out of college, it was super easy because I'm in these different associations. The National Strength and Conditioning Association has a couple of different journals. So I had access to reading the latest research. So I dedicated myself to reading an hour a day just on what the latest research was, just so I could put myself at the top of the field. And over time, it's like compounding interest. So then I just perfected my craft for writing programs, for interacting with other clients. It really just helped elevate my skills as a coach. So then I became known as like the go-to kind of person in the coaching world. So then I can kind of get called on by a lot of different parents, athletes, different sports. So it was I was available to a lot of people. And then just having that availability to help a lot of people, then hand in hand with the more that I take on, the more money that I could make. So it was being available in the schedule, but then also being available to a wider audience, which I guess you would think is kind of counterintuitive if you're trying to niche down to get specific into something. But the principles are still true. Spending the time on the front end to really grind and hone in on the skills that will make you money down the road.
Hmm.
So as I went with the general approach, that got my foot in the door, so then I could start to get better at coaching.
Yeah, but you niched down on a skill, right? The audience wasn't as niched down, but the skill was. And so the people that needed that skill resonated with what you had going on and came to you. And from like the time period when you first started to like when you started becoming more of a go-to, like how did your brand, like how long did it take for you to make your name like a household name, or like at least like have your brand be something that people actually call credible and could rely on?
I mean, it takes time, but if you're looking for the specific amount of time, I couldn't tell you because it just feels like it's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
But it's the more that you do grind and more value that you are applying to the world, the better results your clients get, the better that they like you, the better chances that they're going to refer you to other people. And referrals is like the greatest tool in the world. So the more value you can provide to your clients, your audience, whoever it might be, like tenfold over, you're going to get the returns. So just grinding, digging deeper down into it with those people that you can help the most.
Yeah, no, 100%. So take us along the journey, man. So you started personal training, right? You started getting called on, your brand started to grow, your name started to grow. Then from there, at what point did you start your supplement line? Because I know you're also selling supplements and like, for like, you have your own personal brand now, you have your personal coaching and training, and then now you also have a supplement line. Like, what was the process like starting that up?
Yeah. So, you know, that grind was getting pretty heavy. So now a lot of people are contacting me. Their clients are sticking with me for longer periods of time, and new people are reaching out to me. And it really made it easy for me to scale up to longer days. And it wasn't it wasn't uncommon for me to have a 10 to 12-hour day. And I was working 7 days a week, again, being available to as many people as possible. And I was wearing it like a badge at the time. I thought I was badass making this money, and I didn't care that I was missing a lot of like weddings, parties. My relationship with my ex-girlfriend was just tanking, missing out on family events, holidays I was working too. So just being super available and realizing I don't think I could work more than 15 hours a day with people. So I needed to figure out another way of continuing to make income and provide more value to people. And then that's when it dawned on me that a lot of people kept asking me for recommendations on different products, multivitamins, protein, pre-workout, whatever it was. People are always asking me because they're looking to maximize and optimize their training. So instead of recommending these bigger name places, I figured I could just spend a little bit of time trying to research the manufacturers and find out like how to do it myself. And that's exactly what I did. I found a bunch of different places that could produce the product that I really wanted to. And I wanted to make sure that I could trust the product and provide it to my clients.
Yeah. So you mind going deeper a little bit on that? Because
Sure.
supplements is like, you have now your own line. For the lesson that anyone didn't realize is that you waited until people started asking you for something and you created what people wanted and what people were asking you for, which is super genius. And I love that. But like, what was the actual process of creating the supplement? Like, did you like YouTube University, a bunch of different ingredients? I know you already have a kind of like a background in this stuff, but like, what helped you kind of put something like that together? Because that seems super high level, and that just might be me not knowing anything at all about the supplement industry, or just like products in terms of like stuff that you can eat industry.
Mhm.
But man, what was that whole thing like, that journey?
I mean, funny story, back in high school, buddies of mine, we bought a bunch of different products and we just poured them all out onto a table. We're hanging out at my buddy's kitchen table and we're just scooping a little bit of this into a little bit of that, and then we were packaging it and we would try to sell it. So that whole like world of creating stuff kind of started back in high school. But
Yeah.
now, fast forward to the situation I was in, I wanted to make sure that I knew what needed to be considered good, just from my own knowledge of learning and reading. So I knew what products or which ingredients I didn't want in my products. So that was a great place to start from. And then from there, it's just reaching out to different manufacturers. You got to Google, figure out, hey, where is this produced? Where, like, what produces where? And then you just go down the rabbit hole. Find a couple contact numbers. You reach out, get on the phone with a couple people, Zoom calls, and then you just go from there. You talk to them about what it is you're looking for. asking them how they can provide it and if they can or not. And then you can just kind of pick and choose. It's how who aligns correctly with what you want. Price is a huge entry to barrier. So it can be pretty expensive. A lot of these places have minimum quantity orders. So you got to dish out a lot of money in the first place to just get it all together. It takes a little bit more than just slapping together a label and then just putting it on some powder. But it is a process, like a lot of things. And it just takes that little bit of extra time and then research and then communicating with these different companies, figuring out who's best fit for you.
Yeah. Were you always like this entrepreneurial and like I'm gonna just figure it out type of guy? Like, was that always something that you had naturally in you, or did you kind of like wake it up later on in life?
I don't know. It's funny that you asked that because I was just talking to somebody about the challenge I got coming up and how daunting 100 miles kind of sounds. And I was talking about how back in high school, it was a couple miles to get to my buddy's house. And if I wanted to go there, I'd have to run because my mom was always working and I had no means of getting there. So I would run, and then every time I would make the trip, I would start to remember different landmarks like, oh, there's one huge tree. So I knew once I got to the big tree, I was a quarter of the way there. Then when I got to the pond, it was halfway there. Then when I got to the cemetery, I was almost there, and I was a little bit closer. So I think that skill of being able to take the bigger picture and trying to break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces helps keep me motivated for different goals and challenges and projects that I'm working on, because it allows me to, one, see the big picture, but then also deconstruct it into small bite-sized pieces so it's not so overwhelming. And then with that smaller steps, it makes it that much easier to just go and check it off.
So then, to keep this conversation going, were there any thoughts ever of like going the traditional corporate route? Or was it like you were completely opposed to that since like the dawn of time?
Dude, I don't know. I think about that sometimes where I'm like, oh, how cool would it be to wear a suit and like go every day into an office? Like, I don't know if I was talking to you, but during my podcast launch party, walking through the office, I was like, wow, is this what it looks like in an office? There's like pen holders and folders and stuff, because I don't get to see that stuff. Gyms and different coffee shops and things wherever I might be going. So it is kind of interesting to think about that. And I don't think I ever could have really lasted too long in something like that. Like, I've always been in a leadership type of role with different sports.
Yeah.
Pretty much every team I played on, I got into like a captain type role. And I don't know if that's that I'm good at following directions or just driven and working hard, but I consider that like an eye-opening experience. So like I feel like I would excel in a corporate setting, but at the same time, I like the freedom. I like the anxiety that kind of comes with not understanding where something's going to come. Because when I had a typical job, my first gym job, where I had paid a salary, and as soon as that salary, it was my internship, but as soon as I got paid a salary, oh man, dude, my effort plummeted. I was like mopping the floors like 3 times a day. I was setting everything up. And as soon as I got that paycheck, and I knew no matter what I did, I was going to get that paycheck, my effort just plummeted. And then having that awareness of being like, hey, that's not who I am, then that was like an opening of like, I need something where I need to be pushed more.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like having that self-awareness to know how you work best is super important, man. And trying to almost like artificially create those circumstances for you so that you can always be working at your best is like super important too. Is like do what you got to do to put yourself in the environment as long as it's not harmful to yourself, but do what you got to do so that you can be at your best at all time. And even if you have to like artificially induce it almost, it's like, but knowing yourself enough to be like, hey, I know I don't work best when there's a certain level of security that's behind me. I like when my back's against the wall, when the ships have been burned, and I have no way to get back out of here, and I have to figure it out. So that props to you on the self awareness to figure that out. So to pick back up on the journey, man, when did you start? So you got to coaching now. We talked about your supplement line, how you got that popping off the ground, right? You're getting things going. When did it start going more towards coaching and not just like personal training? When did that start to evolve, and how did that what was the spark, the catalyst to get that popping off the ground?
Yeah, man, it was that grind was going hard. now I got my supplements. I'm working all these hours in person. Started some online coaching for fitness training so I could squeeze in a couple extra sessions just through text message and email.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt like I was maxing out on what I could do. And then my dad got sick, and it came on quick. And when he passed, I was driving 3 hours to be at his bedside for 3 hours at night, just so I could drive an extra 3 hours back to work in the morning. And when he passed away, I took off one day for his funeral and the day that he actually passed. And you'd think that that would be an eye-opening situation, but it wasn't. I just immediately got back to the grind, and I totally buried it and was like, hey, I'm just going to keep working. And it wasn't for like another year down the road where, yeah, I'm still making all this money. I'm working all this time. And I'm just realizing, like, what am I doing? Because I don't have any of my friends anymore. I don't see them anymore. Broke up with my girlfriend. I can't even call my dad ever again. So I'll never be able to talk to him again. And then it just dawned on me that I can't do this forever. Like, why would I want to do this forever? There's no point. So then I took another step back, and I realized that I don't want other people to do this either. Because if I'm going to build a team, if I'm going to build this community, if I'm going to help these individuals, I gotta be able to provide something more than just fitness and just nutrition. I need to start sharing my message a little bit more and making sure that the people that I care about don't make the mistakes that I made.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Having that moment, man, is like that coming to God moment almost. It's like, what on earth am I doing? And is this how I want to live everything, live life for the rest of my life? And coming to that. And so you got to the stage, and when you get there and everything just spiraling downwards, it's very easy to give yourself the opportunity and permission to just stay down there, right? Because when it gets dark, right? And sometimes it could seem as if there's no light out. So it's like for you, when you were in that almost like that negative, like limbo state of like, man, like what is going on? My dad passed. Like I'm still working. I'm still doing everything the same as if, nothing ever happened, and just pretty much avoiding every aspect of life besides just work, right? Like, how did you pull yourself from out of that dark spot?
Yeah, I think it was a buddy of mine had recently came back into my life,
Yeah.
and just that one connection. Because keep in mind, so for my entire story, I'm always looking to build relationships and essentially get that family back, whether it's with sports, with it's my coaching, whatever it is. I need that sense of community. I need to be part of something more than just myself. I can't really be left alone. And the more that I was working, thinking that it was a badge of honor, that other people were impressed by how much money I was making, how much clients I had, etc. What I was really doing was I was alienating myself. And then I was in that spot by myself alone, and I had no idea where to go. And then a buddy of mine came back into my life, and slowly that was one introduction into, okay, this is how life should be kind of run. Let me take another step forward. Let me now map out what it is that I want. And that's where that awareness kind of came in and dawned on me.
So let me ask you a question. I want to get your thoughts on this, man. What's your thoughts on the quote that blood is thicker than water?
What are my thoughts on that quote?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to kind of steal your spotlight on this because I know that's not the whole quote, right?
It is not. So before you steal my spotlight, I'm gonna steal it back so it can seem like I was the one that said it. I'm the smart guy in the show. So pretty much, I was gonna ask you right after. It's like the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, and as you already know, because I told you, because I hang out with you. But for anyone that hasn't heard it, essentially everyone says that blood is thicker than water. That's not the full quote. For the full quote is the blood of the covenant, meaning the family that you choose to be your family is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning thicker than the family that you were born into. And that seems to be something that's just like a recurring theme throughout your whole conversation, from, having split parents in the beginning to finding a community with football, and then finding a community with coaching, and finding a community with everything you have going on. And it's like that sense of belonging. Like we need something, and people. I've realized this too because I was always I felt like I was in solitude, right? I wasn't alone because I had people around me, but mentally I was in solitude, and I chose to be alone. And it's hard to resonate and connect with a lot of people. But we're social beings, and as much as some people may be introverted, I hate the word self-made millionaire or self-made because, like, in all actuality, without anyone else, like, we would all be pretty much useless. Like, I don't know how to make clothes. Like, you take all my clothes away and put me out in the wilderness, like, I'm screwed at. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to garden. I don't know how to make a fire. I don't know how to make electricity. I don't know how to work my microphone. Like, if this were to break, like, there's so much I don't know. So yeah, maybe you could say I'm self-made, but honestly, there's so many people we rely on. And even if we had a business, if no one else bought your stuff, like good luck making money. Like we need people as much as people say. So I hate the word self-made. So like for you finding your community, like what have you done to attract the right people? Right? Because it could be very easy to fall into a community that isn't good for you when you don't have any other alternative. And it's like, oh, this is the first time I found people that want me, and they might just be trying to make use you for to gain whatever. So it's like, how do you make sure that you found yourself in the right communities so that you weren't getting screwed over?
Oh yeah, dude, I love that. It's going to come down to making sure that you're the best that you can be. So in my coaching, I like to talk about like micro and macro impact, and it starts with the micro, and that's what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you're the best person. Like, are you doing good things? We all know the difference between right and wrong. We know when someone's being good and when someone's being bad. And it really starts with yourself. I know for a while there, it got pretty popular. People were talking about on social media, like whether or not you put your shopping cart away or if you just leave it in the parking garage. And then like that's actually pretty realistic. Like I am returning shopping carts all the time when I see them out there because I know it's like I'm doing these small little things, and you're going to start to attract what it is you do. So the more that you're doing small little habits, small little rules, different things that are making the world a better place, you're going to start to attract others that are more like that. And then as you know, you get around more people, you can suss out who's good and who's wrong. Sometimes it can be a little difficult to find out whose intentions are truthfully good for you, but at the end of the day, it'll align as long as you keep moving yourself in the right direction, doing the things that elevate your character.
I was talking to someone else on this topic too, when we were at FinCon together. So for anyone that doesn't know, Rob at the 100th episode won my 100th episode giveaway. So if you want to be part of the 200th episode giveaway, make sure you listen to whatever the rules are whenever it does come out, because it's going to be come out soon. I just don't know when. So that you could probably go on a trip with me and maybe Rob as well. But so me and Rob went to FinCon together, and we were separate at this time. I went to go catch lunch with a couple people, and one of the guys I was talking to was talking about how he had a situation where, or multiple situations where he found himself getting screwed over because he was so trusting and open to connection and meeting new people, and he got screwed over a couple of times pretty bad. But if he never been trusting and open, he wouldn't have met all the other amazing people that he was also able to come across. It's like a kind of like a dilemma, because like you want to find community, but you put yourself out there too much, you might stumble across the wrong community. So it's like, what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, even with the right intentions, it's there's a learning curve to it. I've been part of a bunch of different coaching communities where their intention was to help me grow my coaching business, and nothing against them. I just think that wasn't the right community for me. And you just kind of keep going and you do your best to minimize the damage wherever you go with any kind of situation. And the more positive people that you can surround yourself with that you can genuinely trust and you know have right intentions, then it kind of lowers the barrier for the next stage or the next community that you're looking to get into. And then eventually you just start to develop your own community around you. And I know you've got walk to wealth community, you've got don't stop like stop is there, this kind of stuff, and I'm slowly growing the taps community a little bit more each day. And we've got like intermingling communities. You
Mhm.
start to see a lot of the same people, and you start to help each other out, and you start showing up for others, and then more people start showing up for you.
No, 100%. Like, you were at my birthday networking event, and
Yeah.
it's like all the people that were there, it ended up being like 60 or so people, and I don't think there's a single person in there who I've ever passed a business card out to. Like, I'm so big on making genuine connections, and for me, that's been able to pay me pretty much in dividends. I spent so much time in 2022, like hopping at to other people's events and showing up and going to all these networking mixers and mingles and all this stuff. And now that I'm starting to throw my own events,